C, email and letter from Valerie Chazon. D, email from Ron Richardson. E, Lanark County Council media release dated March 26th. And L, Ontario Energy Board, notice of a hearing to from information to action, and add Lanark County media release dated April 2nd, 2026. Read OVRT maintenance as information. All in favor? And that's carried. Disclosure of interest now at any point in time during the meeting. Moved by Councillor Johnson, seconded by Councillor Abbas, that the minutes from the regular meeting of council dated March 17th, 2026, and the special meeting of council dated March 25th, 2026, be approved as presented this date. All in favor? Carried. Is there any business arising from the previous meeting? So we'll move on. First, we have a delegation from Reagan Living, proposed development on Wilson Road, please.
Good evening. You look familiar, if I don't, but I'm Reagan Lee. I'm kind of a prototype at Smith Falls. I have born in Port Alpeny, so I'm a relatively local person here. I recognize some of you. I'm here to request the opening of the Wilson Road, which is some of you have it on your plans, but for those who don't know, it's when you get to the big S corner at the end of Roger Stevens coming up here, it actually goes straight. So I'm looking at purchasing the properties on the right-hand side of the road and proposing to do some severances there. So there is also an unopened road allowance that's very small that I was requesting it closed down as well. You guys did do it for me, I think about 8 years ago when I did several severances on Birchall Road. So this isn't my first kick at the can. I have done about 35 severances in Montague Township before so far. So I'm familiar with what's required here, and I'm prepared to do whatever it takes to get the road in there and the services required for the severances. I'm looking at it going in about 450 feet. If you drive down Douglas Road, it's almost identical to that length of road. So that gives you a kind of an idea of what it would look like. I'm proposing 6 severances plus 2 remnant parcels or remaining parcels. There's also room on the other side of the road, and it also opens up for further development down that road. Right now, there's the possibility of looking at about 12 lots would go in there. So that would give you an idea of what sort of, if they were developed and built, that what sort of revenue that could generate. I believe it's in line with the provincial policy of trying to provide housing without the cost of the town or the townships developing the road. And I hope that you guys agree with me. Do you have any questions?
I just got one. I was and looked at.
Yeah.
Since you were talking there.
Yeah.
When you're going to come in on the highway, my only concern would be on the corner of that highway.
So I have received a letter from Lanark County.
Okay.
And they have approved that an entranceway can go there. And they feel that there is enough visibility on both sides.
So it'd be good and wide there.
Because why did you have to have
There's a lot of people would build there, and a lot of them might end up being an auto and be going there all the time.
That's right.
That's
So
something I see.
Yeah, so it would have to be fairly wide, and it'd have to be as far at this end as possible.
Yeah.
To get the right visibility. But Lanark County has sent us a letter.
I was wondering about that.
Yeah, and that was the first thing we did. We wanted to make sure that they were in agreement with opening up the road, and they didn't seem to have any problems with it. And they did send somebody else to do the sight lines, and sent me a letter saying that they did not have any issues with that. All in favor?
We'll take questions from the audience.
Sure, why not?
My property's on that road,
Okay,
right there. How wide is this road gonna be?
well, the roads already exists, so it's a 66.
No, but I mean, if you have to make the turn coming from North Score, if anybody's coming, they have to stop in the middle of the corner.
Yep.
And then turn left.
Right,
How big are you gonna make that?
whatever the engineer says it has to be to make it work.
Do you have those plans?
No, we're not doing any plans until we get some sort of yes from the township. So
Well, since my property is right on that corner,
right,
right there.
Yeah.
So I'd kind of like to know how much you're gonna be taking. And as long as and plus there's a lot of drainage that goes through there, that road.
Right.
So if the road's built up, I mean, that means we're gonna where's the water gonna go?
Well, the drainage will be looked after through a plan. And the road is not gonna be, nothing's gonna be taken from you.
Okay,
So
well, Tom's on the other side.
actually, so at this point in time, council just receives this as information. Staff will bring a report back to us, at which point in time, then we would open it up for more questions. But right now, all we're doing is receiving for information.
Okay, so no decisions are being.
Yeah.
Right,
Okay,
Just to answer your point with drainage, that'll all be part of the process. And it'll probably be better than what it is right now.
well, there's no flooding now, so as long as there's not.
Yeah, and we make sure of that.
But we'll see the plans first, right?
So, thank you, Chair. So there will be no plans until council actually approves that this road would even be open.
That's right.
So that has not been approved at this time. The report back will come back with staff recommendation. And what that road would even have to look like, because staff have not given any kind of specifications for what that road would have to look like. So that will all have to come back. At this time, this is just information. I think the recommendation is that staff will bring something back to the second meeting in May.
okay. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
All right.
So moved by Councillor Bass and seconded by Councillor Crabtree that the presentation by Reagan Lee regarding his proposal for development on Wilson Road be accepted as information. And staff will bring back a report the second meeting of May. Well, did you want to speak?
Yeah, can I just say that for any of the residents who are here and have a say to please provide an email to the clerk in relation to any concerns or questions that you would like answered, so we can make sure that that's in the report.
Okay. Okay. So all in favor? Okay. So our first report of municipal officers is our clerk planning manager regarding Matheson and Rosedale subdivision.
Thank you, Chair. The long report, so I apologize, there was a lot of reading. So I just have a bit of a summary for you. So in early 2024, pre-consultation began on a proposed subdivision at the corner of Matheson Drive and Rosedale Road South. The first version of the concept plan submitted by the applicant included 49 building lots, which has evolved over time to a 41 lot subdivision as illustrated on page 37 of your agenda package. The current version includes one access point off Matheson Drive and one off Rosedale Road South, two internal streets, a stormwater management pond with an easement off Matheson Drive, three green spaces, two of which are at the access points of the subdivision and will also include water tanks for fire suppression, and one at the rear of the property for social gathering, and also two road widening blocks. The applicant has undertaken a number of studies which have been peer reviewed by industry professionals as well as reviewed by county and township staff. The majority of these studies have been revised at least once, if not twice or more, to address comments or questions from agencies, peer reviewers, staff, and members of the public. The documents submitted for this file are available on the County of Lennox website, which is also linked on the township's planning page on their website. So the planning report that's attached to the council report, which begins on page 24 of the agenda package, it's quite lengthy and includes a very comprehensive review of applicable Planning Act, PPS, official plan, and zoning bylaw policies and provisions. The township's official plan identifies Rosedale as one of the most desirable areas for new development. One of the general objectives of the official plan is to preserve and enhance the rural character and natural beauty of the township through regulating the nature of new development and encouraging it to locate in designated settlement areas where feasible and appropriate. The housing policy in the official plan includes the provision that new housing is encouraged to take place in the more built-up areas of the township, such as communities designated settlement area. The settlement area provisions in the official plan provide that while the boundaries of settlement area designation are intended to include a modest allowance for new development to occur, the boundaries of Rosedale and Andrewsville are intended to allow for significant new development possibilities. Essentially, what I am trying to say is that settlement areas are the most appropriate location for more intensified residential development. So the subject lands are currently zoned rural and will be rezoned, the residential lots will be rezoned to rural residential to reflect land uses that are appropriate for a rural subdivision. And they would include single detached dwellings, additional residential units if appropriate, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. Type A group homes are also a permitted use, as are home-based businesses. A number of the lots will require some special exceptions due to insufficient road frontage, which is, there are a few that are less than the 50-meter frontage required in the rural residential zone. None of them are less than the 46 meters required for rural zone lots. Having deficient road frontages in designing a subdivision isn't uncommon, because obviously you have to take into account roadways and infrastructure. They can pose some obstacles there. All of the proposed lots will meet the minimum lot size of 0.4 hectares or 1 acre, which will allow for dwellings on private services. Well, the township zoning bylaw does permit additional residential units as of right. For properties that permit dwellings as primary uses, there may be limitations in this regard for the subdivision, depending on the size and configuration of the primary dwelling proposed. So there were some concerns raised by ratepayers throughout this process, including but not limited to the general displeasure with the new subdivision, school capacity, traffic safety, impact on existing agricultural operations, and drainage. As stated earlier, the subdivision is being proposed in a settlement area, which is ideal for more intensified residential development. With respect to school capacity, school boards were provided with notice of this subdivision application. The county's confirmed that they received no comments from any school board circulated. The traffic impact study that was submitted and peer reviewed and also reviewed by county and township public works staff did not reveal any concerns with respect to safety. It is also acknowledged that there are existing agricultural uses in the vicinity of this subdivision. And while MDS calculations are not required pursuant to guideline 36 of OMAFA's minimum separation distance document, staff proposed to include a provision in the subdivision agreement and offers to purchase, notifying future landowners of the potential impacts of these normal farm practices. So the most contentious aspect of this proposed development is drainage. So at this point in time, I'm going to ask our drainage superintendent, Lucas, who has attended this evening, to answer any questions and maybe give you a little bit of background as to, if he has any concerns with what's been proposed and, how we can move forward if there are concerns. So if Lucas would like to take the podium, I will turn it over to him at this point.
So we were gotten a little later into the process. So we reviewed the third submission and provided some comments back and just reviewed the most recent submission. I think overall, with regards to the drainage, our biggest concern was to the outlet. So right now the current plan is to outlet to Rosedale Creek. But a lot of the water that they're taking, they're redirecting from one point where it enters the creek to the Matheson roadside ditch, and then it enters the creek higher up. In the report, there wasn't a ton of information about what sort of assessments they did on the capacity of the creek and the velocity of the water kind of erosion impacts in that area. So that was sort of the main concern that we had. As well as there's a crossing culvert that crosses Matheson Drive above Rosedale Road and then crosses down through there's two agricultural properties there. So that culvert as well, there was sort of insufficient information about how much flow is going between the two splits, which was our other main concern. And lastly, there's a section at the top end of the subdivision that they said previously doesn't drain. And it was about 9 hectares or something like that, that they have added a culvert in order to convey that to the creek. So that would have been water that never made its way to the creek. So there's probably some flooding issue in that area that they would just sort of be passing downstream and conveying somewhere else. So those were really the red flags, as well as some approach and methodology things, which would be resolved when they did their detailed design. But overall, most of those could be covered by general conditions that they won't impact downstream. They'll assess the creek for its adequate capacity and make sure that it actually has velocity, and propose erosion and sediment control for any area that they're kind of impacting. But that's kind of a summary of the findings. Questions would probably be the next step. Yeah.
Go ahead, Trevor.
When we walked the property with the farmer right next to the east side of there. Now, the front part of his property is wet every spring, no matter what.
Yeah.
Okay, so, and what they were talking about, when we walked the whole length of the property along the fence line. It looked like it was sloping where they were doing some work, it was sloping onto his property. So what is there anything in their plans, or you talked about a detailed plan? Are they gonna do something like ditch right there to get to where the culverts are on Matheson? Or is it just gonna go into his field and his cows and their husband?
They will have to put together a full grading plan as part of their submission.
Okay,
So they'll grade their entire property. They are tied to the existing limits though. So whatever the elevations are along all of their property lines is where they'll have to tie into.
okay,
But they, as part of building a subdivision, you can't dump water onto a neighboring property.
exactly. It looked like that. And I know when we were walking along with the gentleman, it looks like it's all just gonna flow straight onto his property.
So even if the existing condition is that way, if they change that property, they'll have to make sure that the water doesn't spill over and it
Okay.
makes its way into their stormwater management.
So they have to do something like that.
Yeah.
Okay. The other question I had, when you get on the other side of Matheson, they have that old, looked like it used to be an old drainage ditch. when We were out there, but it's all grown in and stuff like that. So for them to think they're gonna take away water with that would be, is that something that they would have to now look at? Like,
You mean the roadside ditch that they're kind of using as an outlet?
yeah, because if you go across the road, that's an old ditch.
Yeah.
That's all grown in with trees and all that kind of stuff. So the fear was from the gentleman we were chatting with, was that it would go across the road and then into that, and then just flood that side of the road.
They would have to make sure that the ditch has capacity. So that'll be part of their design as well. And there's a proposed culvert crossing under Rosedale along that
Yeah.
ditch that they probably have to replace and resize.
Okay. And that comes to question number 3. So when you're draining south of Rosedale, or sort of west of Rosedale, I guess it would be, that all drops away from Rosedale Road. So that sheep farm, is there gonna be a whole bunch of water that goes out of the creek and into there? Like, it just seems.
Which area are we talking about?
For more.
Yeah.
A little further down.
Yes, down.
Down here.
Yeah, so it looks like it's gonna come across here, and then all of this sort of slopes away.
Right.
So I'm just concerned that they're gonna run the water towards Rosedale and flood the other side of Rosedale.
So similarly to the property at the other side, they would have to make sure that everything along their property line makes its way back into the subdivision. So they shouldn't be putting any water on any of those houses that are existing.
Okay. And this all comes in their detailed plan that comes next.
Yeah, so it's kind of like a conditional approval on their conceptual design.
Okay.
And the next stage in the development process is they do their full detailed design and they start checking off the conditions in the agreement.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Questions?
It sounds like you like, it's great, like, kudos to staff, everybody else, you guys are like, you're all over to make sure, because I guess we have a lot of water in Montague, who would have thought. And so I think it's great that you guys are kind of on that too as well, and hearing those concerns from all of our public too as well, you live around there, if they don't want their areas flooded out,
Yeah.
I've heard that before too as well. I think Trevor really touched on all the spots, like the outlet locations of where that needs to go. There's an easement requirement they're saying on 877 Rosedale Road too as well, making sure that they can go through there and it doesn't flood out their property too as well. I'm
Yeah.
assuming that's being all considered. And I don't know, the one thing that popped up to me was the straw bale flow dams. And I didn't really understand exactly, like, is that something that they're actually proposing to do and then we have to maintain, or is it something that would not be allowed to be in a condition at all?
Those are mostly like an erosion and sediment control tactic. They're temporary. You put them in, it'll adjust flow levels and it kind of helps filter out sediment. So we use them a lot when we're working in water courses. You kind of hammer them in, control the flow, and then catch all the sediment and then take them out and clean them out. I'm not sure where they were proposing them here. Were they?
It was just one of the internal comments that
Yeah.
from the building department too as well, straw bale flow dams. There are 7 proposed straw bale flow dams. It is under these would be permanent. Unclear if these would be permanent or sediment and flow control for stormwater management or for a temporary measurement for vegetation growth.
They are a temporary means. So if they were proposing them permanently, then they wouldn't be able to.
You'd be like, no.
They would fall apart.
Yeah.
So in
Yeah.
places that you require a permanent check dam, you can make one out of rock.
Okay.
And then you basically have a perpetual thing that reduces flow and catches sediment. Typically, you don't have those in permanently if flooding is your concern. They're more for if erosion is your big concern, you can put them in. Because they slow down the flow and they will hold it to a certain level.
But you wouldn't allow that to be in a permanent plan.
No.
And all those lines. That's perfect. Those are one of those concerns. So if we kind of cross that off too as well.
Yeah.
Anyways, I think that's I hope that puts some of the public just on ease, knowing that it's one of the biggest concerns being looked at, taken care of. We always have an expert that's also helping out to make sure that that's done correctly too as well. So I think that too as well. So.
Has there been any well water testing? The reason I say that is as per his topographical view of the property, the neighbor who has the flood, he's got the property adjacent to it and on top of it. So the water flows from his farm where his cattle are, flows down the hill, down to the property that's gonna have all the lots, and then flows over back to his property. The issue is it's water runoff. Has any testing been done? Is that going to be part of the checkoff list that they have to do after?
There's usually a quality portion of approved developments.
Okay,
So part of the stormwater facilities is they filter out as they go. They have recently switched to a dry stormwater pond, which has more QA/QC testing that needs to be done and proofed. So they would provide something as part of the proposed design. Yeah.
yeah, it's just because I have my own farm. And,
Yeah.
and so does Jeff. And sometimes if you make a clear on your own part and you put it too close to your own well during the winter, you can get your own runoffs, and which you end up having to deal with. So it's just I don't want there to be an issue after all these individuals move in and they're right beside a farm, and it's like, okay, that was there before you.
Yeah. I think we'll put together like a pretty comprehensive list of conditions that need to be checked off, but the township of Montague is also not the main approver, right? County of Lanark puts their own conditions on, the CA will have their own conditions, and they'll have to make sure they check off all of them.
I was gonna say on that note too as well, because I mean, like, the county is the approval, like, I mean, we've gone through this at that stage too as well, and usually when it comes to is. There's a turn to those representatives from that municipality too as well, to say, have you guys asked, had all your questions answered and all that stuff too as well, so like, then it's like, okay, good, we want to make sure the municipality is comfortable as the county goes through that approval process too as well. It's very, very well working in conjunction too as well, it's just nice, so.
At the end of the day, it will be yours to take care of, so they want to make sure that you're happy with
We
it.
work, yeah, I think the working together is really a key
Yeah.
important, so.
That's why I'm asking the question, because there is that, if you test it in the dead of summer, it's gonna be great. If you test it right now,
This is the best time to test, yeah.
it might not be okay. So that's why I want to make sure there's some sort of stipulation, some way we can make sure this is handled and taken care of before it becomes our problem.
100%.
Questions, then I'll just come back to Christian.
Okay, thank you very much, Lucas. You appreciate that very much. So again, a very comprehensive report that includes a list of recommended conditions in Appendix E. There are a number that I'm sure council has reviewed generally. But keep in mind that at the end of the day, as Lucas indicated, this is our infrastructure, and we have to be happy with the design at the end of the day. So, until we're happy with what's being proposed fully, then it doesn't move forward. But essentially, staff are of the opinion that the studies that have been provided and the conditions of draft approval that are attached as Appendix E are sufficient to demonstrate that this proposed development is now in a position to sort of move to the next phase. And if council has any questions for me, and we also are fortunate to have our planning consultant Forbes in an audience. If you throw me a question that I'm not able to answer, he's got a lot more experience with subdivisions than I do. But if you have any questions, we're happy to answer. Okay.
So process wise,
Mhm.
we do this and it goes to the next one. So how does the county do this? Like, because he talked about there's a number of checks that.
Right.
How does that go through? Yeah.
So similar to a severance, and Forbes, correct me if I'm wrong, we provide our conditions to the county, but other agencies are also going to have conditions as well as the county. So they'll put together their full condition list that would have to be satisfied by
Okay.
the developer. Am I correct? I'll let you step in. Process person.
Person's right. It's very similar to the consent process. The county is the approval authority. We submit conditions associated with the consent or with the subdivision, and it's up to the individual applicant to satisfy all those conditions. The consent, we send in 4, 5, maybe 6 conditions. Here, you're closer to 50 or 60 conditions. Because you're dealing with a much more complex development, and drainage and stormwater is one of the key issues. The important difference between the consent process and the subdivision process is at the end of the day, there's a subdivision agreement that the developer enters into with the township. And that subdivision agreement details how all of the conditions are being satisfied, all the way from the stormwater conditions and entrances to where community mailboxes go and utilities, bell, hydro, all that kind of stuff gets all bundled up into a subdivision agreement. And that's the agreement between you and the developer. So even though the county is the approval authority, you're really the big dog in the process because the agreement is the contract on how this is going to get done. And it will include securities, financial securities, to make sure that the road is constructed to your standard. And there's all kinds, there's 2 or 3 pages in the subdivision agreement about how they go about making sure that you're satisfied that the road's been done to your spec and that you're going to be in a positive financial position taking it over. The same with the stormwater pond, and it'll have how it's been designed, whether it's functioning. Usually there's a maintenance or warranty period with roads and stormwater ponds. There'll be manuals on how to manage the stormwater pond and when it needs to be cleaned out and the ditches looked after. So you'll have a complete idea of what you will have to assume in terms of your responsibilities for the benefit of getting the increased assessment taxes, right? So the difference between the consent and the subdivision is complexity, costs, and most importantly, the agreement, which is a very serious document that you would get into. It's probably the most complex legal agreement you would ever enter into as a municipality, is that type of document. If you're thinking about where we are in the process, I would suggest to you that we're probably 40% in the process. Once they issue the conditions of draft approval, the developer typically has 3 years to satisfy those conditions. They can come and ask for an extension, but they can't just sort of sit on it and do nothing. If they sit on it and do nothing and don't try to satisfy the conditions, it's quite typical for a municipality to say, all right, well, you're not getting renewed, and they'd have to start all over again. Okay, there are many, many checks and balances through this whole process where you as council ask questions of your staff. Are these things being done, right? Lawyers will be involved, external consultants will be involved, but you're very much in control of the process because everything has to go through you, right?
Okay, thank you.
There's a crazy, sorry, there's a crazy flow chart that we sometimes see of the county, and you're in step 11 of 19 steps, and it's going through that whole thing. So it is interesting as far as making sure that there's a lot of thoroughness that goes through the process for sure. So
you're absolutely correct, Deputy Reeve, and it certainly has the ability, this process, to deal with issues such as drainage and access and roads and infrastructure much more efficiently than the consent process, right? Usually they're on an existing road and there's not a whole lot. There's an entrance of culvert and things of that nature. This looks at, external drainage and making sure that drainage isn't going on to people's property in minutia detail. Right? It really does vet them quite significantly, and you're absolutely correct. It's a long process, but you get something like this in the end, which strengthens your hamlets and your communities, strengthens your schools, strengthens the use of your beautiful recreation facilities you have in the community, and is generally looked at as a much better way to do development than sort of the ad hoc severance process. You get a better product at the end of the day.
So another one of my questions was just the planning rationale for the 25% of units is affordable housing. That's tricky in those situations because it's not something we're on, like any services to build like a little apartment complex and all that kind of stuff. So like making sure what's sort of the rationale behind that, and also the steps that would, I don't want to say avoid it, but I mean so it doesn't put a snag in something, because I'm trying to understand where that would be reasonable and something you could actually do.
Deputy Reeve, you're absolutely correct that it's a challenge to do when you're on private services. There's a couple of things though I'd like to say to that. The concept of additional residential units, the 2 additional units that you permit on all your properties, those are thought of as being affordable rental properties. The problem here is that they need to put that additional residential unit concept into their evaluation of wells and septic systems and the size of lots. And that's specifically a condition in here, and they need to do that. And we won't know until later on exactly how many ARUs could go in on that property. But it's I think, a fair assumption to think that there would be a quarter of the properties that would qualify, and that would hit your 25% target.
As a qualification, not something that has to be followed through, but a qualification.
That they are eligible, that the site can support it, and they will have site-specific zoning that highlights that compared to the lots that can't support it. The other thing I think that's important is that there's not a minimum dwelling unit size limit that they have to have. So someone could put a modest bungalow on one of these properties if they wanted to. Someone would not have to build an attached garage. Again, that's 15% of the cost of new construction is in a garage. They don't have to have a building that has 7 truss designs and a fancy articulated roof with more lumber in it that are in the walls. So eliminating those barriers and giving them options, I think, is an important way to address affordable housing on private services. And Jeff, there's another sort of emerging thought that's coming out of Canada Mortgage and Housing that's of the opinion that just build houses, just address the demand, get more units out there. Someone that looks at a house in here at, $600,000, $700,000, maybe more. Maybe they're vacating or selling a house that's more affordable and moving up. Maybe they're vacating an apartment and moving into a starter home here. So the idea of just building more stock means that there will be affordable units available as people move up and they go from their starter home to their forever home type of thing. So all of which is to agree with you that it's hard in a rural setting, but there's approaches that we're talking about, that we're looking at, that will allow us, hopefully at the end of the day, to check a box. And if not, we'll hold the developers' feet to the fire until they come up with a couple of models that are more attainable, I think. I don't think, I have to admit, I have a hard time putting the number 500,000 and affordable in the same sentence. But that's, that's sort of what we're doing these days. It doesn't make a lot of sense. It's really hard. But that's sort of the reality that we're in.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you for.
Thank you.
So if we have no further questions of staff or. So moved by Councillor Crabtree and seconded by Deputy Reid Farrell, that council provide direction to staff to submit the attached Matheson and Rosedale subdivision report dated April 7th, 2026, which recommends conditional draft approval to the County of Lanark. All in favor? That's carried. So next we are going to move item E before B, and E is our municipal manager, treasurer, deputy clerk, Allison Drayton, and our facilities lead hand equipment operator, Wayne Martin, on Rosedale Hall mini split system repair versus replacement bills. That means you don't have to say it. So
All right, thank you, Chair, and good evening, council. So, so this is the replacement, or this report is for the replacement or the repair of the mini split system at Rosedale Hall. So the township installed the unit in 2010. They have a life expectancy of about 10 to 15 years. For those who are unfamiliar with the mini split systems, they provide ductless heating and cooling for individual rooms or whole homes, using outdoor condenser linked to indoor air handlers. For Rosedale Hall's case, this supplements the main heat pump that we have there, which will prolong the longevity of it as well as its aging as well. The mini split uses 60% less energy than standard heating systems. Over the last couple of years, there have been some mechanical issues and breakdown in the systems that have been repaired. Repair costs since 2022 have been $10,577.34, with an average of $2,644 per year. The annual inspection was completed a couple of weeks ago for 2026. And it was indicated that the exterior control board has failed. Due to this failure, they could not diagnose or test the indoor units as well. They provided a quote to repair the exterior control board of $2,000 plus HST. That indicated that that may need further. Sorry, that there may be further damage and issues with the indoor controls as well, which would cost an addition. I would like to discuss with council options with the system to ensure the best financial decision is made. My recommendation is to replace the aging unit before the costs are incurred even more. The option is recommended that the hall has been quite busy with rentals and use, and a failure during a weekend that has been rented for a wedding may be detrimental, and the cost for emergency replacement could be very high. The estimated cost of replacement is $10,000 on the low end to $13,000 on the high end plus HST. The council approves the replacement of the mini split system or the heat pump with a new efficient system with an upset limit of $13,000 plus HST. And also that they approve the purchase as a direct purchase and single source purchase based on the service agreement that we have with XL Home Comfort. For the financial implications of it, so the cost of the new unit would be $13,300 with HST. We can apply for the Lanark County Climate Grant, which will cover $7,500 of the unit. And we can use recreation reserves of 2026 surplus of which would cost us $5,800. Any questions?
Questions?
First of all, Shane, great first report.
Thank you.
You got a great shirt on too as well. Great first report. So I think that's really, really well done. Would you also say maybe with like the new unit would probably be even more efficient than the unit that we're probably using that's sitting there right now?
100%. Like I said, this one's 15 years old, 16 years old.
And technology's changed a lot.
A lot.
So we're looking at a more efficient unit, one that's going to work, and we've hit the lifespan of it.
Yes.
Like I totally agree with you. I think it's a good usage of the climate grant too as well. So I fully agree. I think that option one is our best way to go and replace it. I think that's the right choice.
Like I said, it supplements the main heat pump that we have there, which is also aging as well. So it will prolong the life of it with a new split unit.
Fine with me.
So we could share through you. So county has already reached out to county. Jane and I have been discussing this. County said it does meet the requirements for the $7,500. So we already know that ahead of time now. Council, we had previously discussed the compost giveaways, but we do still have funds from last year that are in deferred revenue to still do the compost program with Public Works. So we can still do this and our anticipated programming. But it is our recommendation to apply, formally apply to the county for the $7,500 to replace this. The hall has been extremely busy. There was only 3 days in March and 3 days in April that it wasn't being used. And we have a couple of weddings up and coming this year. So it's been busy and we need to make sure that it's operational. The last couple of years, we've had kind of emergency failures and had to fix them on the fly. And now that we're ahead and we have Shane here as the facilities lead hand, we're getting ahead of it and not just throwing money at something that is at the end of its life.
I think it was a great report and based on the small cost and difference, just based on the planned repairs. Just to keep running for now until it breaks again versus buying a new one and having something that should have some longevity, a little bit of warranty and a better unit. I think it's really a no-brainer and going to be a cost savings.
Thanks, Shane. So moved by Councillor Crabtree, seconded by Deputy Farrell. Council approve option one presented to the state in relation to the repair versus replacement of the mini split system at Rosedale Hall. All in favor? So now we will move back to Public Works Manager Ed Haynes on optimizing gravel roads option reconstruction.
Chair, evening council. So I'd like to say before we start into this, it's a long report again, so I'm pretty well have time to review it, so I'll kind of hit the highlights as we move through. But thanks to Allison on this. I think working through this together, we generated a lot of conversation. There's a lot of ideas out there that we bounced off each other and, you know, talking to their municipalities and stuff, and so hopefully this report leads into further discussion amongst council with residents, and we can move forward with some sort of plan. So as a background, 2025, council directed staff bring back the report, looking at costs and maintenance upgrade options. I think staff council is aware now of the split between gravel and hardtop, with 96 kilometers being gravel, so primary amount of roads in the township have the gravel surface. What we have here listed is the existing fleet for Public Works and the staff complement. So next slide is interesting. I mean, this really speaks to the Public Works staff and the variety of activities that they take care of through the township. You know, and as much as we try to plan day to day, things happen. It's always fluid. Things come up, and they can be taking on any of these activities at any given time. So as much as it would be nice to sort of assign certain duties, like say a grader operator full-time, for example, that person needs to be able to take on any of these activities at any given day. So talking about the gravel roads, this diagram here shows kind of the basically how they're constructed and how they should work. So 3 primary maintenance requirements with gravel roads, of course, grading, we're all aware of, dust control, which will become a hot topic come summertime here when things dry out, and then the maintenance gravel process. Over time, of course, this wear surface does become damaged by traffic and weather, of course, leads to pothole development, water puddling, certainly this time of year, and the frequent freeze-thaw cycles that we're certainly experiencing now. I mean, you see it even today, how the weather's changed from this morning to this evening. So speaking to dust suppressant, this takes place in summertime, of course. Like in liquid calcium chloride is what we use. Application rate is listed there at 3171 liters per kilometer. And what it does is suppress the dust and then, of course, hardens the road surface. So it's quite a process. If you see this sort of train of equipment moving through down your road, with the grading, with the water truck, with compaction, with calcium as well, and it does a great job. So that's something to keep in mind here, of course, in wet years after this application, it can dilute the product, which of course will directly affect the performance. Maintenance gravel. Gravel, of course, needs to be added. We spoke to that. It does break down over time in terms of finer material of these fines, of course, which then can be washed away with rain, with drainage issues. There is some that's displaced during plowing, certainly. Definitely this time of year, if we hadn't plow or those shoulder seasons where the road surface isn't frozen, you're going to lose some on the shoulders. And every year we do, unfortunately, experience material that's stolen. So quite often happens during the maintenance gravel process. We've had it in grading operations, even when you see the big windrow down the center, and then as the grader operator turns around and makes his way back, the windrow is now no longer there. So it's an unfortunate reality that we experience every year. Some of the material can be recovered by grading, but eventually, of course, new gravel must be added, which is what we do in this current cycle of 4 years. Which mentions there the 4-year cycle, and this is how much the road. So generally speaking, 5 inches of gravel on each gravel road every 4 years. Again, a big operation where you'll see live bottom trucks bringing in the material, the shaping with the graders, compaction. You'll see the big packer on the back of our grader, and then the liquid calcium to kind of bind it all together. So we can talk about surface treated road. Quite often you hear it referred to as tar and chip. Talk about a double surface treat or a single surface treat, so the DST or SST. And
So it involves the single or double layer of the bitumen material with the granulars mixed in. So it's a nice smooth driving surface, good traction, and of course we get rid of that dust that nobody likes. Your typical maintenance practices on these surface treated roads, where you'll see an application of another surface treatment on the 3 to 5 years. You could see this recently here in Cove Drive, so last summer. This coating will extend the lifespan of the road by resealing it, protects it from the effects of weather and increased traffic. So your typical lifespan with this type of road, approximately 10 to 12 years, which can be extended, but you're going to see ongoing maintenance costs beyond that kind of time span to keep it viable. Asphalt is nice, of course. It's durable and flexible. Instructions listed there, how it's constructed. It's compactable, hot, preferred for high traffic areas. You see this, of course, on your highways, runways. It's smooth and long lasting and weather resistant. Significantly longer lifespan than the other options, with very little maintenance with this. So typically, if you look at a project recently, sort of last summer for St. Tetlock Road, for example, where 50 millimeters was used, HL4 was the asphalt that was used in that rehabilitation project. So maintenance practices, you'll see that this summer on Mauer Boulevard, crack sealing. So again, trying to keep that moisture out of the base and underneath that surface from promoting further damage. So we'll go ahead and use a crack seal in there, seal those cracks up. And you can go on to a micro seal as well, an overlay that's completed mid-life cycle. So full reconstruction should be considered within the 15 to 20 years, but depending on type and quantity of traffic, of course. And proper timely maintenance can certainly extend it beyond that. Again, that example will be for St. Tetlock. So there's quite a long lifespan there. If you look at McLaughlin Road, for example, I think we're beyond. It's in tough shape for sure, but we're at that 25-year mark on that. 25 years, yeah. So your maintenance practices on any type of road, proper drainage is key, honestly. If the water is allowed to sit on the surface, we're talking gravel, again, that's where we get the rutting, we get the potholes, we get all that stuff. If you have the cracks on the hard surface, that's where we get the damage to the base layers underneath the river surface. So ensuring the road is proper crowned to shed that water, and of course the ditches to receive it. The ditching and drainage were noted as priorities in Public Works in 26 budget. And council, as I'm sure you're aware, you approved the addition of the new split employee. We have one here tonight, so he splits his time between facilities and equipment and keeping the old excavator. So, you know, so we've already done some work with both excavators being in so far this year, more on the brushing side, of course, with the ground being frozen. So you will see improvements carry on this year with drainage. So the road base, critical for any road, for durability, longevity, and safety of any surface. Acting as a foundation prevents premature failure. What you see pictured here is what they would call a corduroy road. So we do have these in the township where the base has these logs placed on. So any road will only perform, as well as it's been constructed. Regardless of the surface type, it must be constructed with solid subbases. So I hear this quite often, staff hear it all the time. Why don't you just pave it? It's a common thing I hear quite often. And you know, these are things we need to consider as a whole when we're moving forward as an upgrade to the road, the base being critical. So Pioneer Road, for example, has its corduroy base, and you know, in that condition now, of course, would not make it a viable candidate and initially. Okay, so road upgrade policy. Do we need a gravel maintenance plan improvements or combination? So council needs to determine the requirements for staff to create a detailed work plan. We're going to show you some options to consider here. So with option 1, of course, all this being with public consultation, reducing gravel roadway speeds to 60 kilometers an hour and signing it accordingly. Other municipalities have done this with the gravel roads. Slowing vehicle traffic down, of course, limits the further damage from vehicles. It can help mitigate some of the dust concerns. There is a cost involved, of course. Signs are not cheap. And so approximate number on that, just to go around all these gravel roads and lower the signs, would be 10 to 20,000. So quite most of our gravel roads, quite a few of them, as you well know, aren't even signed to begin with, right? So that defaults them to an 80 km/h. So this would be, you know, posts and signs and the labor to have them installed. Not simple as just replacing the signs. Another thing to consider would be changing the material specification for the maintenance granular that is applied. So there would be increased costs for the better aggregate, of course. But that may lead to reduced staff time and of course increased longevity of the road. So there'd be some offset there. Increasing quality control on the granular that is applied by sieve analysis, which is a common form of doing it. This would include the township completing their own testing separate from the contractor that is obligated to do it as well. And then of course accommodating the budget with change on how often gravel is applied. So we'll continue on in that, increase the staff overtime allowance and or add a full-time dedicated grader operator or operators. Of course, there's a high cost in salaries and employment costs for adding full-time staff. And sort of speaking to an earlier slide where you show that list of duties that these folks do. So you're looking for a multi-skilled employee if you were to fill that position. So option 2. Create a road upgrade policy to assist in developing gravel road needs plan. Again, with public consultation. So we'd be looking at a scoring matrix to prioritize gravel roads. So similar to what we saw in the road needs study that spoke to the hard surface, we're looking at something specific to these gravel roads. Traffic factor is certainly a big one. The numbers used in the road needs study, unfortunately, were not updated. So this is something that we'd have to undertake in-house, right? Get these numbers updated so we get an accurate view of what the traffic is in this road state. Routine maintenance and frequency factors. So the public works would take into account if the road requires additional routine maintenance compared to the normal. So you think of some of our gravel roads like Nolan's Road, for example, that has a higher traffic count where we've looked at doing a second dose of calcium. And driveway factor. So a number of driveways and types. So are they strictly residential, are they farm or the commercial, and how many per average kilometer of roadway? Future development factors. So working with our planning department, we could see are there known future developments or plans of subdivision or something where there'd be justification there. This would be taken into consideration. And are there legal or ownership issues? So if there are known legal or ownership issues with a roadway, this would prevent any upgrade of the surface until the issues are rectified. Prime example, again, not picking on them, but Pioneer Road. This does mean that improvements to the road cannot occur until those are rectified. And of course, with anything we do here, all the scenarios are solely reliant on available funding. So looking at this scoring matrix that we're speaking to here, what's it look like? So using Guthrie Road as an example, just a section from Double south to there's a bus turnaround. For those of you familiar with Guthrie, it's roughly 1.8 kilometers. The balance of the road, which is about 1 kilometer, would not meet this priority due to the low housing within that further 1 kilometer. So if you look at the scoring matrix here, the total would equal 22 points, which would make it a high priority, meeting all the requirements in the draft policy. So speaking of Guthrie Road, it is slated in 2026 and this year to receive maintenance gravel, but if this option to upgrade the surface was chosen, we recommend doing the following. So we build up, there are low-lying areas along that roadway, ditch the roadway to ensure that proper drainage that's so important, do any culvert replacements in preparation, and reduction of the speed to 60 kilometers an hour. All the above noted would be addressed without any change to the existing budget. So the funds that were set aside to do this maintenance gravel, which isn't cheap, could be put into these improvements ahead of the surface upgrade. So having this work completed this year and then having it left through a full season would ensure that any drainage issues or any issues whatsoever, we could tell, like you're going to get settling, for example, right? All these things that drainage doing are we're going to get that spring thaw. We'll be able to see is everything flowing properly, getting away properly, before making that big investment, putting the hardtop on and then having to deal with issues afterwards. So lots of numbers here. So maintaining this gravel. So the way it is right now, exactly, right? So you're looking at all the costs over a 20-year period and the operations that are required to maintain it. So you see your maintenance gravel listed to the left, staff time, you've got your calcium application, grading, everything's captured here. And then, of course, your total cost along the bottom. You got two options there, with and without the second dose of calcium and what the costs look like. That's based on the full 2.8 kilometers. So moving on to a double surface treatment, just on the 1.8 kilometers we spoke of, and leaving the 1.1 at the end as gravel. In two scenarios here. So you've got your gravel costs at the top, you've got your double surface treatment below. And this is sort of a worst case scenario. So worst case scenario, what they mean by that is where, you know, the road's gonna last so long, we're gonna have to do another treatment here at year 16. So that brings the cost up. So best case scenario is all that work we've done ahead of time, you know, it functions well, we get good longevity of the road, that second treatment's not required, and then how the costs are affected from that. Again, versus the gravel. So switching your surface to asphalt with all the same operations over the same time period, and then they'll do this again. So total cost breakdown based on surface type, again, with worst case and best case. That worst case, best case again is based on that second treatment. And the costs per year over the 20 years. Gravel, surface treatment, asphalt. So option 2. This point using Ford Road as an example. So this would be from McLaughlin Road to just past Brown Road. Using the same scoring matrix, and then you come up to a score of 24 points, or again, a high priority, meeting the requirements of that draft policy in those sections. So Ford Road, 2027 is scheduled for the maintenance gravel. Again, same scenario, we would hang on to those funds and put it into the improvements ahead of the surfacing improvement. And this is, again, the same breakout of costing over that 20-year period. With your worst case, your best case, again, surface treatment, you've got that at year 17 now. And best case where it goes the sort of the 20 years. Ford Road, and this is with asphalt now. Then you comparison all broken down. So option 3 to consider. So developing a road committee comprised of staff, council members, and members of the public. So what we need to do, or council needs to do, sorry, develop a terms of reference. Terms of reference would be, you know, scope expectations of the committee from council. Which staff positions would be expected to attend the meetings? Are there education or experience of public members required to be chosen on this application? Chosen by application, sorry. Regardless, any training and onboarding of public members would be required. And how much was this going to cost depending on type and duration? Time commitment from members for the meetings, road tours, orientation, and entire road network. We had that put in there, and really what we want to ensure that if we're going to go ahead with a committee, any sort of committee, they need to address the gravel roads as a whole, township as a whole. We can't focus on just one area. We have to be aware of you know, the challenges on all the gravel roads across the township. So the cost of the committee, staff time, council, public member pay, fuel, training, etc. there. Public members would be contact for public concerns to bring to the committee for discussion. Members to be equal representation, again, of various corners of the township. So hoping if we went ahead with a committee that we had members' voices from all around the township. And then, of course, the increased communication with the public. So direction from council on timeframe to develop this, being the election year, potential constraints there. Public consultation on viability of this and desire to have this type of committee. So that would be done by survey. So when choosing options, council needs to consider and provide direction on the following. So option one, gravel maintenance improvements. Choosing to move forward with all options presented this day for public open house and survey for public feedback prior to making the final decision. Time required by staff to install the signs and funding options for signs after public consultation and final approval by council. All the bylaws would have to be updated, classifications of roads, speed limits, etc. So we have policies, bylaws in place now. This would all have to be updated. The numbers are obviously dated. A tender for maintenance gravel would be developed for the 2027 application year. The current provider would be notified that there will be no extension for 27, and the tender document will contain provisionals of alternate gravel options. So we can look at carrying on with what we're using now, this granular M, and then provide this provisional for some other type of aggregate. So we can have a real view of what the price difference will be there. Option two, a road upgrade policy. So choosing to move forward with this type of policy for the public open house and survey for public feedback prior to making the final decision. If moving forward, this will be completed by a consultant and or by staff. Of course, there's a cost associated with both. Would need to be discussed, budgeted, and or funded by reserves depending on timing. Costs associated would be presented at the time of a gravel road needs plan for the implementation of the policy. And of course, option three, developing a road committee. So choosing to move forward this committee for the public open house and survey for public feedback prior to making a final decision. Staff, public members, and council time commitment and cost required will be presented based on developed terms of reference. We need a timeline for that as well. So we'll post for members of the committee based on education experience council would like to see on the committee and cost to be budgeted in 2027 and or funded by reserves. So next steps, council providing direction on what to include at the open house on the 20th. Staff will present at the open house and receive feedback and input from the public via the survey. Staff will post an online survey to gather additional data for those that may not be able to attend. And a report will be brought back to council for further direction on what options they wish to work towards. And I believe that is all.
So Trevor, will let you start.
Okay, I like all the options. Yeah. The speed limit one I like, I think that's something that should have been done a little while ago in that, but a lot of people speed down our roads anyway, but hopefully we'll catch some people who will slow down a little bit. But and the change material thing, now I've learned a little bit more about some of that comes up. Is there a difference between, let's say, what Tackaberry gives us versus Campbell, or can they all do the exact same type of thing?
So it's up to us to provide the specification.
Yeah.
And then all that gets determined in SIB analysis.
Okay,
So regardless of where it comes from.
so it's just a matter of we tell them whatever we want, and then there's costs associated with that.
Yeah, so we're talking about perhaps a totally different aggregate option.
Right.
That may last longer. It's gonna be more expensive, but if we're saving on the maintenance and the more frequent,
Exactly.
application, at the end of the day. But coming back to your original point, if we're specifying, again, a granular M. And it comes back in our analysis that perhaps that's not what we're receiving, that's a whole other different
Okay.
conversation.
And I'm not saying that Tackaberry does on first.
No,
If there are different ways that they do it. Okay, so that's part of the aggregate now. I also like the one where we perhaps have a full-time grader operator all summer long. Where that's what they do, they start at one end and go to the other, however they want to do it,
Sure.
but so that it's continuous. And I think in the long run, that might actually save us money. Because it might keep us ahead of things, because I know we got caught at the end of last year. And then the weather changed on us, and then after that, we're kind of getting hammered after that.
Right.
But if we had someone who is continuously doing that, I know it's an extra person, but perhaps it's a part-time person that we come and we bring in. And also be able to do other things like he can, but would that be more of an advantage for us on all of our gravel roads? Because the majority is gravel.
Yep.
Then someone, I think, should probably be working on it all the time. And if it gets to a point where you don't need it because it's super dry all the summertime, everything's been done and the roads look good, then he can do something, he or she, can do something else. So I think that might be something I'd really like to hear more about. Then when we get to option two, I really like, I think we need to start somewhere and perhaps Guthrie Road because it is gonna get done in gravel. So we can save that cost and the future maintenance of it. And it's just a short, did you say 1.8?
Correct, yeah.
So 1.8 kilometers. So if we're doing something like that. And we just slowly keep doing this part, that part, and we just work our way across as roads come up, so that we're not. Also have $1 million bill, we were gonna pay 400,000 for some for 500,000. And the fact that it shows Guthrie and Ford, what the differences were versus tar and chip or pavement, however you did that. But I just think it's time for us to start clicking along. And maybe Guthrie is the perfect place to start. And maybe there's other options, but I like that part. Then we get, already asked about that, sorry. The option 3, I think that is something that I definitely want to, I'll even volunteer to be on it. I just think it's something that, because this is probably our biggest concern as a township. And we have 96 kilometers of this, and I think we need something more comprehensive where we can all talk about it. And feel that our concerns are getting addressed and also include everybody. And I do like the idea up there from all 4 corners of the township. So that it's not just one where I live or something like that. But I think if we did something like that, then we can look at all the roads. And maybe it's not just gravel. It's what happens when you get potholes down certain roads that are already paved and that. But I just think it's time for that too. So I'm sort of wanting everything. Yeah, so that's just the way I looked at all that, and I want to thank you guys for all of the work that was done in this. It's nice and comprehensive. I really like the examples of Guthrie and Kenworth, because then I can see actually that it does make sense. We're not just throwing money into a gravel road, then maintaining it for 10 years, and then doing it all over again. And then I thought too, one of the big points for me too is if we had someone who's continuously grading. I know I've chatted with a few different people. And that's something that I think really could help us out a lot with a lot of this time, depending on the weather too. And that's the thing, if it's not needed, then there's other jobs for people to do.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things where the problems don't go away. They come back, and our weather is so bizarre now, where it's raining and it's not raining, and all of a sudden it's a drought. I just think perhaps having someone who's dedicated to that might be helpful to us. And it takes some of the pressure off the rest of you, so that you can do all this other stuff, the ditching, brushing, all that kind of stuff. Because I understand more as we go along, that drainage is key. And if you don't have proper brushing, you don't have proper ditching, then you're gonna pool on the road and then it falls apart and we're back to ground zero. So sorry to be long-winded, but thank you very much.
Sure, thank you. So just to keep things simple for us for note taking side of things, can we go, so our recommendation is to include all 3 of these options to the open house to get feedback for council. But can we go option by option to make sure council is on the same boat, just so that we're not writing down Trevor thinks this, Jeff thinks this, Jill thinks this. If we can just go option by option for simplicity's sake. The only thing that you may want to take into consideration on option 1 of a gravel road maintenance improvement is our private road people. I think you guys have heard several times about potentially having a private road like assistance grant application that other municipalities have. You may want to get some feedback from the public on that as well. Other municipalities more and more are starting to implement these types of things. You may want to at least have some information about in survey in relation to those folks, because they also pay taxes here. That would be my only addition to this that I did not think of through all of our conversations. Ed, it came to me last night. So that would be the only one. So if we can just go, I just request option by option just to keep things simple for us. Does everybody agree with including for the survey to the public, the reduction to 60 kilometers an hour for gravel roads? Putting in the specifications for alternate granular material for provisional items in our next tender, notifying the current provider that we're not extending 2027, and seeing if there's interest in adding a full-time dedicated grader operator. And then I do recommend adding in the private gravel road assistance grant. Similar to other municipalities, but that's up to you guys.
I guess one of the things with the lorry speed too as well is it's understanding also what the current speeds are on a lot of those roads too as well. Because we've gone through that too as well, is making sure we have the data that supports lowering the speeds, because the speeds right now, on some roads, they could be up there in the 80 km as average, but we could have roads too as well that could be lower too as well. So I think it's getting a good understanding. It's hard to, we've talked about this in the past too as well. It's hard to change a speed of a road if there's not data to support to do that. And also enforcement's a big one too as well. I mean, I like to use First and Tetlock and Kelly Jordan Road as an example.
Yep.
First Tetlock has been lowered to 50 km an hour. Kelly Jordan is still 80 km an hour. I remember data from a few years ago showed there wasn't a big overall speed change in those roads. So like it's one thing to change the speed. And I'm just being that devil's advocate side too as well. Like I'm not saying like we can't do that. It's more of just making sure we're understanding that is that going to solve the problem? It doesn't always solve the problem. So I think it's just making sure that we completely understand that. I think that's, I'm all for putting it in there. Obviously, it's just more of that discussion point too as well.
So Chair, I think that goes deeper though, as far as when we reduce it, also reduces our liability, and it also potentially changes the class of the road, which changes the minimum maintenance, right? So it's not just the speed, there's a couple of other items that we have to take into account as well. That, yeah, speed's one factor, but there's multiple other factors that are going to change with it, and reduce our liability.
Which can be big too as well. So yeah, so I mean, that'd be, when we talk about the change of granular, that's come up in the past too as well. Is I guess the question is that, is there a better material out there that contractors have? Because we brought that up before, and then it was like, well, you may have to go up to somewhere in Steep Rock or something like that. They might have something, but there was something locally here. So I guess because that question has come up in years past. And it was sort of like, well, there wasn't really an option to go with. Is there options for better granular that we could actually bring in? That's because I think that'd be something that would be interesting. Because I know that was brought up before, and it'd be nice to know what those options were and costing was too as well. Because I remember from the past, it wasn't really presented as an option. So.
Right, so that's the idea here, including that's provisional, to see that cost difference. So recently I've had conversations with Drummond North Elmsley, and it's something they've tried with a different granular, substantial price difference. Okay, but they're putting less of it down less frequently. So now this is early in their sort of experiment. So, you know, I don't have long-term results on how it's played out. Initially, the road super up there is pretty happy with what he's seeing. But this is how this will evolve, right? But speaking to other municipalities within Lander County and beyond, and see if they're using, or even reaching out to some contractors, road builders, and what do they suggest. So yeah, absolutely.
That'd be a huge piece, yeah.
Yeah.
And Chair, through you, a big component to that is also making sure that quality control is done.
Yeah.
To ensure that the gravel that is tested is actually the gravel that's being put over the roadway.
Yeah, that's another one that is a big one that was brought up, I think in the past as well, saying, can we do our own testing?
Absolutely.
And I'd love us to see us to do that. I mean, I don't know what the cost would be to do that, but it'd be interesting to do our own testing as that's going out there. And I think that
We will be for 2026.
Yes.
That's
So
yeah.
it's in the existing contract, but the contractor is to provide the SIP analysis.
Which they do at the beginning when we
Which
do
is
it.
great, yeah, but just due diligence, we can carry on doing it.
I know, I always think of like the county side of it too as well. When they go out and they have paved roads, and I remember a question that's saying, so why do we have that guy go out and who's measuring the road, one of our county guys? And plain and simple was because we want to make sure that we're getting the pavement that we paid for. And like, but it was in the contract, so yeah, but we want to make sure that we get it. And we caught them in the past where we didn't get the right thickness. I'm like, interesting. So that's good to know that we're those follow-ups, and I think those follow-ups would be pretty critical for sure. The other one that's not in option one, but I was wondering too as well, is like, is the change of gravel applications by the amount of cars on the average traffic on the roads too as well. Like, is that sort of being thought about too as well, or is it?
Absolutely. So on a 4-year cycle, we'd have roads. You know, you think about some of our dead end roads, for example, Bennett Road, let's take Bennett Road up in the north end there, right? The traffic count there, you're receiving gravel every 4 years on Bennett versus every 4 years on Birchall. It doesn't make sense. So this, again, moving ahead with some sort of gravel road maintenance plan and developing that. That's something that we can speak to in there.
So that's in sort of, there's not really comparison in there, but it's sort of in there as far as that.
It would be part of it, absolutely.
As far as that discussion point. So, yeah, that's because that's a big, yeah, 100%.
We have a lot of, as you know, a lot of short dead end roads that don't have high traffic counts, like, you know, Arlington Road, 10 cars, so it's the last traffic count, 10 cars day, and annual average daily traffic, right? So to do that every 4 years versus, you know, Pinery or Nolan's or something else.
So a 6-year cycle for something like that, and a 3-year
Exactly.
cycle for these, and they start playing around a little more to get kind of a better maintenance side of it too as well and the other, like, I guess the drainage is the biggest part. I mean, I didn't really emphasize that too as well, because it's like, we're choosing Guthrie as a choice as one of the ones that was chosen because I'm assuming that we see a good base there. We see a good option for that. I mean, Pinery is, I mean, we don't like picking on it, but I think it's the great example is like if there is no base there for a lot of that, where if you try to do that, like we're talking about like very apples and oranges in that sense too as well, right? So like when we're talking about that upgrade policy, we're talking about looking at roads that are truly able to support what we're doing with a minimal amount of sort of like setting the stage, I guess, right? So.
And it should be made clear though, and again, we keep mentioning Pinery, it doesn't mean we're not gonna make improvements up there.
100%.
Right,
no,
so we're gonna
agree.
carry on, like we mentioned last year with the ditching improvements and stuff like that, and that needs to start, so.
Yeah.
But as of now, using the scoring matrix, it's just not gonna score high enough for us to move in, you know, and look at that upgrade right away. As we would with say Guthrie or Ford or one of these other ones that would score higher.
The scenarios that you're kind of going after the low hanging fruit first as you work on growing the other trees in order to make sure to use that analogy, I guess, so we can attack that too as well.
Absolutely.
So it's so yeah, I mean, along with Trevor, I mean, I want it all. So I'd say, but I think it's great to bring it forward to kind of continue the conversation, to bring it to I think that's a great staff recommendation to make sure that we're bringing it out there. I mean, we all admit that we want to continue to make this, our roads better. And these are the discussion points and also the cost side of it too as well, because as we talk about what that's going to cost to go into it, what does that look at as the budgetary side of it? And I mean, like when we talk about this is how much more it's going to cost per year, but just making sure there's a true understanding of how that looks. And if people are comfortable with that, then I mean, that's great as far as what we can move forward with. So thank you for that.
Chair, so Guthrie for the example, Guthrie is a prime example of it should have been paid by the developer today. That's why whenever we get proposals like the Wilton Road, we're gonna recommend asphalt.
100%.
So those are the type of things that we don't want to happen again, right? So we're trying to address that. I think that everything that's presented in this is feasible. We also have to start looking at, instead of just tomorrow, the long-term plan of what is actually the better surface to put down and the better bang for your buck long-term. So everything is feasible without huge increases. We just have to look at the long-term plan of what people are looking for and what council is approving us to work towards. So that's why we presented what we presented to you, but we still really do want public feedback. We agree with everything kind of in these options that they're absolutely doable without doing big tax increases. It's that we're now, instead of having and continually increasing our gravel maintenance budget and taking some of that, putting it in the vertical. Right? So we're just adjusting and reallocating our funds for a good component. There's going to be some small increases, very minimal, that people are going to see though. Right? And they're going to say, oh, our roads are better. Oh, we're not, you know, beating our vehicles the same on the road. So there's going to be all those changes. So I don't want council to think that we're asking you just to choose one or two of these things. We're good with including all of these items and getting that feedback and then coming back to you with more information. Because I'm sure there's things we didn't think of that the public will. So I just want to make that known. We're not asking you to pick and choose out of this for any of this. We think it should all be included for the 20.
It's already put different. Like I think that's great. I look forward to that sort of fulsome and big conversation from the public. I hope we have a lot of the public come out and have that discussion, like and see that this is a very open discussion to say, hey, listen, like let's all work together to make this make our roads better and to work towards it. I think that's the biggest thing. We have a staff that wants to work towards it. We have a council that wants to work towards it. We have a public that's also like the more heads that are into that too as well. And we have that discussion points. I think there's a better answer can come to it all. So really looking forward to April 20th to that full meeting. So making sure that we have the public here, spreading that word as much as possible to bring those people out so we can have that fulsome discussion. I think we're all really excited to have that fulsome discussion.
Any further?
So going back, like, I think the options are wonderful. But the reality is there will be a tax increase. So it's a matter of what that tax increase and whether everybody can stomach it, because they're all wonderful options, but you know, $100,000 for a new staff member, the greater running full-time or wear and tear on the vehicle. More grading means more gravel, because more gravel gets pushed off every time you grade. You pull some on, but you push them off. So as long as like we can figure out what that's gonna look like number wise, and that, you know, the public's on board with it, it's wonderful options. And the speeding thing and reducing the speed, I think it's a great idea. But everybody knows that the police, I live on Ford Road, and I think I've seen them twice in 11 years. So you know, it's not going to be there. You know, the best thing is still tell your neighbor to slow the F down. It sucks, but you know, it's what we can do. I think it's great to do it, and it's gonna be great for our insurance. But like you said, it's going to also reduce the amount that we're supposed to be doing.
Potentially
Yeah, great.
changing the classification.
Yeah. So
Based strictly on traffic count.
based strictly on traffic count and
Still behind the traffic.
you still decide traffic,
In that
but you
classification.
reduce the speed limit. But I think all the options are wonderful. I really support bringing it to the public and seeing what they really want to hear and say. And because I think all the options were great. I think the report was well done, and I think if everybody's willing to spend a bit more in taxes, I think we can definitely do something great.
There's not much else to say, except for I like the idea of grading more. That's one thing for sure. And I think the reports are excellent. I think it's something as a counselor we can look at and we can see a lot more. And I'm willing to go through all these, and it'd be nice to see the public there.
So from what I'm hearing, we're asking for options 1, 2, and 3 to be presented at the open house and receive feedback via survey and question period. And after that, the data will be gathered, brought back at a future meeting with all options for council to consider.
Yeah, so, are you good with us adding in the private gravel road assistant grant?
Yeah.
That, I'm not saying it's gonna be a big ticket item every year, but that they have that ability. Different municipalities, some municipalities have scoring matrix that it's $200 per kilometer plus $20 per household. That's on the, up to a maximum of what they can apply for. Those types of things, so we can look at that if that's, because I think you've heard it before, it's been requested, but for that. I think the other thing we need to understand though is that, are you looking at timeline wise? Are you looking at potentially implementing? That's why we use Guthrie as an example, because Guthrie is slated for gravel this year, but we would want to use those funds to better the roadway as described in this, to then be prepared for a surface. So are you looking at a timeline of this like spring, summer before gravel maintenance, or are you looking to have everything in place, sealed up, tied up for 2027 and new council?
For me, I'd just like to get started with a lot of these options. So for me, Guthrie, I'd like to get started as soon as possible. It's with a lot of stuff, and with what Gerald was saying too. I view it, I know there could be a tax increase with this for sure, but I do view it more as a reallocation of a lot of the funds that we'd use on gravel to do in other places. So there could be tax increases, but as the weather changes and we see more and more freezing, thawing, rain, and then drought, I think we're gonna have to change the way that we do it, how often we do it. I think is probably something to look at. So I'm for trying to do things, just sort of, let's get kickstarted, let's start going.
So we're saying that Guthrie's a trial until it's fully implemented. Or-
Well, that's how I look at it. It's, for me, I'd like, it looks like low hanging fruit, looks like we're gonna have the money out there anyway, and for minimal cost, we can do a different type of service. So I just look at it as money well spent. For me.
It's already partly ready too, right?
Yeah.
On some of the roads. Yeah.
So we're looking at saying part of this is going to occur in 2026. And it still remains a priority moving forward to get the rest of it in place.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying though, is like. We haven't done the public consultation yet, so. Like. So before doing public consultation, you may hear back from them saying, no, we don't want asphalt, we just want better gravel maintenance. So that's why I'm saying, like, from a timeline. What? And do we want the road committee? Cause we're kind of putting the cart before the horse, because the road committee hasn't been developed to help guide from the public perspective. So my recommendation would be to get the terms of reference for the committee first. To get that established. I think you're looking for public feedback, right?
Cause Guthrie's, it would be another 10,500 a year.
Yeah.
Every year. Till doomsday, not counting if the in 25 years when you change it over. So it's already. An increase that we have to find.
Yeah.
On top of with the normal gravel and everything else. Where we would have to see what the difference would be in improving the better gravel. And then if we're still gonna be bringing out a full-time grader. And that's why I say we need to figure out what these options are, what these percentages look like. And then say, okay, what percentages look good to you? And what is the ratepayers willing to increase? Because we don't want to every year say, okay, it's an extra this and extra that. And you want to find a baseline and say, okay, what can we do and try to keep it affordable, knowing that we have a certain increase that we have to do every year.
Chair through you, I think you want the public input on all this, right?
Yeah.
So, the terms of reference for the road committee would probably be your first. Right, like you're doing the April 20th meeting, feedback, terms of reference, I think is.
Then we have that committee up and running. Is that true? You're saying?
Well, you need to at least establish if their interest. And what are you looking for those members that are gonna sit on that committee? Are you looking for certain are you looking for engineers? Are you looking for previous grader operators? What are you looking for to sit on that committee?
So, I'm sorry. So can we do those two options a little bit in parallel? I know we're putting the cart before the horse with, if we're doing Guthrie without having the roads committee up and running, terms of reference, all that kind of stuff. Because the Guthrie road thing seems like a very low hanging fruit that we could kick things off with in upgrading our roads. Sorry, not upgrading, reallocating some of our costs. So yeah, it would be $10,000. And I don't want to tie future councils to a huge plan going forward. And that's where I could see, okay, we have public consultation and you go through that so that whoever the new council is, maybe it's all of us, maybe it's none of us, they at least have a start.
Chair through, my fear would be that you're setting a precedence though, without having. Like, all the other in the background, so when you set that precedent, now the expectation is that that's going to continue, so.
The way to do it then is you do the roads committee stuff first. And then Guthrie would be,
Consultation, like,
yeah, and then Guthrie is next year.
I was gonna say.
It would be a discussion item with the road committee to say, look, this is the potentially how this would play out. This is similar to what we're doing with you guys, but that you're gonna have council members, staff, and the general public for that feedback of, well, how much is it gonna cost in tax increases? What does this look like? What is this, having that full spectrum to then present back to council.
Guthrie maybe end up getting pushed because they'll end up doing the surface treatment that they're supposed to do this year anyways. So because it would be it would.
Guthrie is the kind
or is it- No, not surface treatment, the gravel. The gravel, sorry.
Yeah, boy, we'll have that.
I apologize. Sorry, it's supposed to be gravel this year, so because it would be slated for it and we wouldn't change that, it would already have its gravel, so it probably wouldn't be looked at next year. It'd be the next one, and this is based on the committee, based on doing everything that we should be doing. Figuring out, okay, what would be the next one on the list that would be slated? Does it make sense to do it? Is it financially feasible and all that stuff?
Because I think there's a lot that you want to pump the brakes a little bit as well, saying, okay, we done Guthrie to get, yeah, we got something done, but I don't know if that is always the best case, because I mean, when I look at Ford Road, and I'm not proposing that you could do that one instead of Guthrie or anything like that whatsoever, but when you're getting into the discussion phases, saying, well, if you did Ford Road and you were to do that, because it is a connecting road to other roads, would it then take some of the pressure off other roads that go around, like McLaughlin into the backside of Carroll Road, that's a dirt road too as well, but it takes some of the pressure off those roads, because now people, instead of going that way, that I usually go that way, but now I'm gonna alter my route and take those surface treated roads that are gonna now take pressure off our other roads, because we've systematically looked at doing that road first, where Guthrie is gonna be a road that you're not gonna change your traffic volumes by doing that. The people that live there, the people that go down there. But changing something like Ford Road might actually change the of what people do and everything else, and that could be a benefit to the other dirt roads that we have, and taking pressure off those roads. So I think there's a really important aspect to kind of go through and make sure that we're systematically looking at it with all of the input from the public to everybody else, and make sure that we're not making any knee-jerk reactions, that we're looking at it. That's a systematic approach to making sure we're doing the right upgrades that could also help offset some of the other ones too as well. So I think there's a big piece of that. That's what going forward. I think making sure, let's not get too hasty. Let's get into this process. And if it leads into 2027, and that's the probably the more appropriate and more prudent way of doing it too as well.
I think that with the committee there too, we can talk about it a lot better, because you got factors, just like if Guthrie was done, you don't have the grader going down there anymore. That's another spot where you're putting your grader in other places. So with the committee and everybody talking, I think it would work out well. But as far as doing anything this year, I don't. To go ahead and do something like that, I think we'll have to put it off and get all our ducks in a row, as they say, I guess.
As long as we're moving forward, like, I just want us to start doing things, making some stuff happen. And if Guthrie isn't the one that we should do, I'm fine with that. And that's the point of having the committee, is that we'll have the feedback from the four corners of the township.
Exactly.
And they'll say, to Jeff's point too, okay, well, if you did this one, you take the pressure off of, I'm all for that kind of stuff. I just don't want to get stalled where we don't actually do anything. So as long as we're moving forward, I'm up for all the options, but I want to start moving.
And I think the plan that was this year that we were going to do more traffic counts, get that back up.
We have to get accurate.
Yeah, to try to get back up to date, because it's now a few years old, and
Yeah.
so that we actually know what. Going back to Jeff's point, saying that, this road's being used or utilized a lot, maybe this one needs it more than Guthrie or Ford or whatever, just based on, the people move around, people change locations, and sometimes things are used differently.
That is key for sure. Yeah.
So staff are clear that we're doing options 1, 2, and 3.
Yep. So we'll include all of the options for the open house. We're gonna get feedback from the public on all of the items. We'll have questions, and then obviously an area where they can just provide comment. In relation to either over and above what they'd like to see as a road committee or those types of things. And then from that, I would say probably the second meeting in May, we'll bring something back to council to get things moving. I think that's what Councillor Johnson's saying, that we will kind of have a draft terms of reference for you to look at for the committee, to get that posted. If you're choosing an application process, I don't know what you're looking at for a process to choose, but if it's an application process, you may only get a handful of people that are willing to commit the time and put the effort in. You may get a large number of people. So that will go out, and then I think we'll, maybe even ask the public, what are you looking for these members of this committee to have as a background or have to sit there on your behalf?
Years gone by, we've had a roads committee. Is that something that like the term of reference and everything else, think that we'd be able to pull from, or do you think there's something that maybe a more current?
We'll look at a more current
model.
version. The road committee, and again, that's gonna be part of the discussion though, is it just gravel? Is it all roads? What does that look like? And I think Tom sat on the previous committee, that didn't seem to, he could speak to that, but, so we want to make sure that if we're developing this and people are committing time to it, that it has a purpose and that we're working towards something. That is the biggest goal.
There is a timeline set to all of it. I think is what that we have it there to move forward with.
Mhm.
Okay. Yeah. So moved by Deputy Reed Carroll, seconded by Councillor Johnson, that council direct staff to include options 1, 2, and 3 in the presentation at the roads open house to receive feedback via survey and question period on April 20th, 2026. And that council direct staff to post the presentation, draft policy, and other documentation that we presented immediately for public review and comment preparation for the April 20th, 2026. And further, the council direct staff to create a survey to post publicly for feedback and further discussion of council prior to approving a policy. All in favor? And that's carried. So next is our public works manager on our roadside mowing contract.
Thank you, Chair. A substantially smaller report. It's to do with roadside mowing. Something this occurs every year. This is budgeted now. This is information only. The contract's run out, pricing went out. We had 2 people submit pricing. As you can see, the pricing's all listed here. Airport mowing was included. It has been included for pricing purposes historically. That's why it was included here again. This was left up to the Flying Club to decide on how they wanted to proceed. I just simply included it, had the contractors bid on it, so we could provide that to the Flying Club and they can decide what they want to go. So based strictly on our roadside pricing, which is what the township's concerned with. As you can see, Mr. Buchanan was the low price on that. So with the purchasing policy and that relatively small dollar amount, this was awarded to Mr. Buchanan to proceed. So with the type of mower he used, it doesn't really matter with the weather, so he'll be starting sometime in June with the first cut ahead of our roadside spring. Any questions on roadside mowing?
So moved by Councillor Johnson and seconded by Councillor Bass that council accept this report as information only. All in favor? Next is our municipal manager, treasurer, deputy clerk, Alison Drayton, on our 2026 financial rate.
Thank you, Chair. So this is, the county has set the tax ratios and the tax rates. The school board maintains status quo. And the township saw a 4.63%. So that was less than what was presented at budget. We did have additional growth, new assessment came on prior to the closing of the year of 2025. So an overall change between all 3 that we collect on behalf of was 3.85% increase for 2026. Substantially lower than a lot of our neighbors. So that's it. So just the tax rate all of the year by law. So
Excellent. I like to see lower than what we're budgeting. So, sure. Thanks, Alison. Appreciate that. There you go.
So moved by Councillor Abbas and seconded by Councillor Crabtree that council approve the 2026 tax rate report presented this date as information. And further, that council approved the bylaw presented this date for the passing of the 2026 tax rate. All in favor? Carried. Reports and committees. So moved by Deputy Reed Carroll and seconded by Councillor Johnson that council approved the minutes of the Montague Recreation Culture Committee dated February 23rd, 2026 as presented this date. All in favor? Carried. Moved by Councillor Johnson, second by Councillor Abbas, that council accept the minutes of the Maryville Public Library Board meeting of February 24th, 2026 as information. All in favor? And that's carried. Moved by Councillor Abbas, seconded by Councillor Crabtree, that council accept the minutes of the Smith Falls Public Library Board meeting of March 24th, 2026 as information. All in favor? Carried. We have the petitions, so we move on to bylaws. Moved by Councillor Crabtree, seconded by Deputy Reed Carroll, that bylaw 4208-2026, being a bylaw to establish and impose tax rates for the purpose of raising the general municipal, county, and education levies for the year 2026, be read a first, second, and third time and passed, signed, and sealed this 7th day of April 2026. All in favor? It's carried. Motion, notice of motion, or action items. We have item A. Moved by Deputy Reed Carroll and seconded by Councillor Johnson, that council directs staff to prepare a recommendation report to be brought to the second committee of the whole meeting in May for discussion. All in favor? That's carried. The second item is our letter from Kurt Evoy, request to waive fine for demolition of their permit. Is there any discussion on this before we have the motion? Okay, so moved by Councillor Johnson, seconded by Councillor Abbas. We have to decide if we will waive the $1,000 fine. With reference to your hydro lines that could be there, your bell lines, etc. So looking for, what is this?
What was the demolition permit costing? Do we know what that would have?
$100.
$100 for the, just to get the permit to the $100, not have to, and then deal with it.
Yep.
Do we have to go with $1,000, or is it within our purview to change that amount, or will that also send us into this, right?
Yeah, because in the past we didn't.
So we have 1,000 to 5,000, 1,000 is to build it.
Okay, that's sort of what I was looking at.
So find the minimum.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm taking it we will not waive, correct? Okay. So moved by Councillor Johnson, seconded by Councillor Abbas, that council not waive the $1,000 fine for building without a permit for demolishing related to the owner's demolition of a garage at 19 Live Street. All in favor? And that's carried. Next is our draft letter to Prime Minister Carney regarding Alto high-speed rail. This is the one that
This is the letter, is it not?
yeah, so Kirsten and I attended a Zoom meeting with all the municipalities in the area that were being impacted. And then a draft letter was created for all the municipalities to review and send back for acceptance of the petition against Alto.
Yeah, this was in the original action item. So yeah. So I mean, wasn't super good, but I mean,
Oh.
but because it's another one that's in there. But yeah. So, but I'm obviously for this letter, and I'm glad we have this many signatures, and I hope we have more.
Okay, so moved by Councillor Abbas, is that, sorry.
Sorry, so since that letter was circulated, there were some suggested amendments to that letter that were proposed by, I can't recall exactly what municipality it was off the top of my head. One of them was with respect to new bullet number 5, to put with the first proposed corridor for construction being Ottawa to Montreal. And to protect the interest of our residents, why would the land expropriation process not consider an approach where no expropriation west of Ottawa would take place until the Ottawa-Montreal corridor is nearing completion and further information has been shared on a better defined corridor west of Ottawa, along with supporting information. And then in addition to bullet number 3, regarding the 401 corridor, why is a stop in Kingston not being considered to ensure a long-term local economic benefit to the region should the high-speed rail move forward? Otherwise, the high-speed rail greatly impacts the region from residents, land and infrastructure with no local consideration of economic impacts.
Correct.
Additions to, and I'm assuming everybody's agreed to those additions to those bullet, because as far as that goes.
So that was part of, the first one was part of Scott Reed's second petition.
Yeah.
Reference to get the Ottawa to Montreal done without expropriation west.
To make sure that it was working and viable before.
It's our understanding that Smith Falls also wants to stop. So,
But that's
and
what-
that they're actually doing a study to prove why they should have a stop. So that, I don't know if they've made any recommendation to change that or not, but.
I haven't seen any change from the
No.
thing in there.
And perhaps the final version of this letter will remove Smith Falls if they've opted to go a different route. And it could also include additional comments from councils such as yourself, things to add. This was just sort of like the preliminary version of the letter and one municipality's comments.
From the feedback that was given by all the municipalities.
Right.
Which included Smith Falls at the time.
Quick question, is everybody just gonna say that we wanna stop? Cause if everybody just keeps at it, hey, we wanna stop in Kingston, well, we wanna stop it,
Yeah.
you know, it could be kind of.
It's not really high-speed rail at that.
And a little redundant. It's just cause Kingston's added one, if Smith Falls says, well,
Yeah.
you know, it puts that in here too.
So moved by Councillor Abbas and seconded by Councillor Crabtree that council authorize Reeve Jennings to sign the amended letter to Prime Minister Carney prepared by the Township of Rideau Lakes in opposition to the Alto High Speed Rail project. All in favor? That's carried. Next, we have the Alto Roundtable Summary Report of Lanark County.
Yeah, I mean, you were part of that too as well, that roundtable one, right, for Leonard County, was that the
Yeah.
one, that's one that you went to too as well, that, and I mean. It looks like they kind of summarized a lot of the concerns, but not all the concerns, I don't think, this is Alto's version of it. And I think they've sort of, I mean, just as a talking point, I think they misrepresented. A lot of the opposition against it, and they try to word it a little bit in their favor for sure. But it is there, so it's like, it is good for a good read, but I think it's also just one of those things where. I don't know if they really summarized or really got all the true objections of what people are looking at, so it's so that's one of those concerns I have when I read those things too as well. Where it's been, you know, they try to tie in the concerns, but they've spun it a nice way. And it's just, we have to be cognizant of the way that they're trying to spin things to make sure that we're on top of that to continue to show our I guess our unitedness of what we're trying to accomplish with it too as well, so. That's all.
Any further discussion on that? So moved by Councillor Crabtree, seconded by Deputy Reid Carroll, that council receive the Alto Roundtable Summary Report as discussed as stated as information. All in favor? It's carried. Next is our email and letter from Valerie Chiasso, opposition to Alto High Speed Rail.
Yeah, I mean, listen, we have a resident that has submitted her own objections to Alto, and I think that's we commend that, and we commend any one of our residents that would put forth and want to make sure that they're showing their feedback, and obviously Valerie has some background in this too as well, and I commend her and one of our residents for putting in that letter and also her objections too as well. I think that's great. And you know, obviously, I hope many residents that have that same feeling do the same thing, so.
So moved by Deputy Reid Carroll and seconded by Councillor Johnson, that council receive the email and letter from Valerie Chiasso as discussed to state as information. All in favor? Carried. Next is our email from Ron Richardson, the rail line in Adirona.
So we all know rail lines are tricky. We've seen them with some of the dealings we've had with them about everything else. I think one thing with Ron too as well is gonna be, it's, you know, it's great that he's reached out to us, but I don't think, we don't really have any bylaws that the rail company will ever follow. They will do what they so choose. And I hate to say that, but it's true. We had Scott Reed even come to the county once, and we were talking about different things, and he brought up the rail line discussion that we had about them blocking a rail line on one of our roads. And even his openness about how arrogant and tough they are to deal with and everything else. But on that note too as well, I think making sure that if we're gonna give Ron any sort of information. We don't want to say it's not up to us. We also want to maybe pass it on saying that you need to go to your MP Scott Reed because he is, trains are a federal from the transportation. So we need to maybe give that information. And we also have a contact to as well that he hasn't helped us a lot, but there is a contact that we have that looks after the rail company and complaints against the rail company. And if we can share that contact with him too as well, that would be great.
So moved by Councillor Johnson, seconded by Councillor Abbas, that council received the email from Ron Richardson as discussed this date as information. All in favor? Not carried. Next is our Lanark County Council media release dated March 26th.
Just highlighting the council expression of opposition to Alto. So at our Trails Committee, actually, a couple months ago, we were putting forth a motion to bring to the Economic Development Committee to talk about it cutting through our trails and cutting through everything else. And then this came back, and speaking with and I was talking with Richard and Kurt as they were coming back from the UWC meeting, saying, well, maybe we should take that off of our Economic Development Committee and push this one a lot stronger. So that was a big one, as we were already working on something from the county, and then we got one from the UWC to really emphasize it. So it's UWC, like that's a power of bringing together all of the Eastern Ontario wardens together to kind of talk about once again their opposition to what is kind of going on with Alto. So I think we're seeing a good, strong, united front from this side of Ottawa too, as well as we work towards it. We do want to, on another note too, as well, tomorrow, we have Scott Reed coming to do a small delegation with us again to talk to us about Alto at the county too, as well. And we'll make sure that we share that information back to you as well. But there's obviously there's been a lot of good talk and oppositional talk and everything else about that. And it's great that we supported obviously the OWC's motion too as well. So we're all working sort of in conjunction towards that path. So anyways, just that communication piece from that. Thanks.
So moved by Councillor Abbas and seconded by Councillor Crabtree, that council accept the Lanark County Council media release dated March 26, 2026, as discussed the state as information. All in favor? And that's carried. And then we had item H, which was in error. So we won't be addressing that one. And some further information items. Unfinished business, other business. So before we dismiss, questions of our audience, please.
I have a question. Okay, well, first of all, just let me say that I'm very pleased to finally get some momentum moving on partnership discussion. It's long overdue. Appreciate the support. Secondly, I'd like to say that also testing the aggregate at the truck, random testing is also long overdue. And looking for better quality aggregate is something that I've been beating a drum on for the last 10 years. So that's also long overdue. Congratulations on that. Pardon me? No, but it's in the process. I'd also like to say that one thing that concerns me in the report concerning lowering the speed limit, one of the points was that it could lower the classification of some roads. Well, as I mentioned at Rosedale, oftentimes when we call in now, the answer is the roads are being maintained to the minimum standard. I'm concerned that lowering the classification might be an avenue to further reduce the level of maintenance on the roads beyond lower than what we have now. And we're not looking to go lower, we're looking to go higher. So I just want to make it clear that that shouldn't be, when we talk about liability, well, I've maintained roads plenty, and liability shouldn't be the factor in maintaining roads, it should be the quality of service. Doesn't take a civil engineer driving down the road, bouncing through potholes, washboard on the corners and choking in dust to realize the roads aren't being maintained properly. So we don't need to lower the standard, we need to raise it. It's one comment. The other thing that I would like to say is I appreciate the initiative of the extra grader, or rather the full-time grader. I think it's probably a good idea. I would like to point out to a lot of people that probably don't know that from now, once the snow is off the ground and the frost is coming out and the roads are drying up, from now until the time that the calcium is applied is the most critical time of the year. And it requires grading almost constantly. And the idea that you can grade the road this week and it'll be good for 6 weeks is just non-existent. It's a constant process at this time of the year. You'd be lucky if it lasts 6 days if it rains. So having one grader, what concerns me is if you develop that policy and there's complaints, the answer is going to be, well, the grader's out. But you know what? 5 years ago or something like that, we bought another grader at a cost of, I'm gonna guess, $350,000. And the reason was because it was needed out there. So for this critical period, from now until the time the calcium is applied, a constant grader is a good start, but there's lots of times when one grader can't keep up and they both need to be out there. So in order to maintain the level of service that is acceptable, we need both graders out there and they need to be out there damn near steady when the weather is permissible. And I know it depends on frost and I know it depends on rain. And there was a lot of grading done up until this week, but it rained all weekend. And now they all gotta be graded again. So that's the bottom line. Road grading is a constant process. You don't grade it and forget it. It's ongoing. And I'm sure there's plenty of you that don't understand that it's very critical from now until the time the calcium's applied. If you put enough calcium on to stabilize the road, you forget about it for 3 months. That's the time to do your ditching, your brush cutting. You don't have to worry about grading because the calcium has stabilized the road bed and it stays hard unless you get a week of rain and then you blade it up for a couple of days and it gets hard again. Okay, so that is something that I'm sure you don't know. One other thing was, I don't know how many of you live on gravel roads. If you don't live on a gravel road, you have no idea what it's like. Okay? It's not what you think, it's far worse. Now, this initiative of developing some public feedback and moving forward on some of these plans, I think are wonderful. I think the road committee is a great idea. I think some of Ed's suggestions are great. You might also consider taking random samples from your calcium chloride trucks and make sure you're getting your 35%. You want to be getting what you're paying for. However, that being said, my concern, looking for public feedback from the public on these initiatives, is this. Where is our greatest tax base? Is it on the asphalt roads? Is it on the gravel roads? Are you looking for public feedback from everybody in the township? Or only the ones with skin in the game? The people living on the gravel roads. They're the ones that are concerned. Anybody living on an asphalt road, they don't give a whippy. Okay? So if you ask for public consultation on an initiative that could possibly raise taxes, if the tax base is the majority living on asphalt, we're sunk before we ever start.
So that's a great point. So one of the questions will be, do you live on gravel? Do you live on asphalt? Obviously, I don't disagree with you. People who live on asphalt, I don't want to increase my taxes because you live on gravel. But that's going to be taken into consideration that you guys as asphalt or people who live on gravel have paid for the asphalt. Has to go vice versa, right? So that will be taken
Exactly.
it'll be taken
Exactly.
into consideration.
I think, one last point, appreciate the time to listen to me. I think the road committee is a great idea. I've been lobbying for it for some time. I think, once again, only people that have skin in the game should be on it. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Yes,
I think that something that has been missing from all these road reports has been a cost benefit analysis of doing the chip and dip or whatever you want to call it. And I think that you're going to have at this meeting people who are going to say you don't want to do it because it's going to cost money. But if you can bring forward the figures that show that by doing a chip and dip on a road, number one, Ed's figures here show that there's about 800 hours of grader operation. And that means that with 100 kilometers, each kilometer takes about 8.5 hours of grader time. You can also figure out the reduction in calcium, and you can figure out the reduction in gravel and put those together to offset the cost of going to chip and dip. And if you have that information for the 20th, you'll win over a lot more people.
She did do a small kind of thing. If you look at the slideshow, she did give that analysis of two options, just to give you guys an idea of what the cost would be over and above with the reduction of the analysis. So that's what we were talking about for Guthrie was 10,500.
Yeah, which
The whole.
10,500 every year over.
And
So
then
just
the whole, but
that's it. It's all in there. That's what I'm saying. If you actually read it out, it talks about what the cost was, what your savings would be. And if you look through it, it does spell that out for you. So she doesn't do it on all roads.
that's what I'm saying, as a, for all of us to get car and chip.
That's a lot of work. Where you basically are taking a full-time person for a couple months.
So, and just to that, remember that's why we chose a couple roads as examples to get the feedback to say, because it's gonna be work, which we'll put it in, but like. We have some gravel, people who live on gravel are saying, we don't want asphalt, we don't want the speed to go up, we want this. So it's to get that feedback, but
Can we not do, instead of doing a specific road, can we not do in general, how much it cost per kilometer? So whether it be Guthrie, whether it be Ford, whether it be
Yeah.
Birchhill, why are we picking on and highlighting certain roads versus being able to say, this is the cost?
so Chair through you, because certain roads have different bases. So we're saying that based on these roads, we know what the base is and this is the cost, like. And again, we're not picking on Pinery, but Pinery has a lot of problems. So for us to actually do a detailed analysis of Pinery, it's not gonna be the same cost per kilometer as Ford. So we're trying to, based on the roads and what we know of the roads, that's what we're doing the cost analysis.
Another question on this, the report that was done up, that would be presented on the 20th, you're looking at options. But looking outward in, it's almost indicated that these are our only three options. And that's not what I'm seeing what the perception should be. These are three steps that should be taken, not options. Like, this is not, and as I read it, I'm going, these are the options that they're going to be giving us. And if I'm reading it that way, then I'm going to say that the public is also reading it that way. That these are just not options, these are things that need to be done. Not options are being done, but these things are needing to be done, these studies need to be done, the maintenance needs to be done. We need to keep this going. They're not necessarily options, these are steps that the council and staff need to take and are preparing to do. Why are they considered options?
You're looking at me. Okay, so whenever we're saying options, because that's the wording we use to bring reports to council on options for them to discuss. In no way are we saying that there's only three options. I think I did indicate to council that we're looking for feedback from the public of things that we didn't think of. Similar to what we did with animal control and those types of things. So
But it is being presented as options.
for
Public.
For council, on April 20th, there will be options. It'll say, are you interested in these types of things? It's an option to council to direct us on what to bring on the 20th. So council has said, yes, we want feedback on all of these things. So that's what we'll be getting is feedback on all of these things. It won't be presented as options. It's an option of council to direct us. So it's our process.
Thank you for the.
Yeah, so it's our process. And sorry if that was a little confusing for you folks, but so on the 20th, it won't say, do you want this option, or this option? It'll say, here's the intent. You like, do you want this? Do you agree with it? You know, we're moving forward.
So is this a discussion or is this just a presentation?
So, council through you, so it's going to be presentation with question periods and feedback. So, again, similar to the one that you guys held, we don't want it to just be a complaint session in the sense, we hear you, we know some of the issues, we want you to bring them forward in the documents. But we're not gonna be there all evening.
And so how long are you giving us to make these important?
Yeah, so there's gonna be documents for everybody to fill in and provide feedback, and it's not just gonna be question and answers. There's gonna be a section that says fill in, like what your thoughts are.
Well, no, I understand that, but how long are you giving us through the meeting? Is this an hour meeting that we're?
Oh, no, because it'll take a while to present. So I think we were looking at like 2 to 3 hours.
So how long are you giving us to do questions and answers?
An hour and a half to 2 hours. Yeah, so we want the feedback. Council, correct me if I'm wrong. We want the feedback from the public, and that is the intent of it.
And back to what I've read, it's in the presentation, it didn't talk about discussions and questions and answers. So I'm just reading what I'm being presented today.
Sure, so council is aware that there is a question and answer session and discussion, so and that will be publicized at the beginning.
Okay, because it does state that the invitation is a presentation as well, and it's like, okay, like, can we get?
Yeah, it'll be the same as the Rosie study that was completed that was supposed to include gravel roads, where you're gonna have that opportunity to speak. Yeah.
On that, are we getting that? Study on travel road, or is that?
So that's where we need direction, okay, sorry, has it care through you? So that's where we need direction from council of, are we outsourcing it to a consultant to get a similar road need study to what they received? Are you looking for staff and a committee to work alongside to develop this document that's going to be maybe more beneficial long-term planning? So that's again where we're looking for feedback. That'll be one of the survey questions to the public. Do you want a consultant, a third-party consultant to come in and complete it themselves? Or would you like it to be?
Did we ask what happened to the last consultation that didn't deal with the gravel roads?
So it's actually on our meeting, our YouTube meeting. It's all public. They didn't meet the requirements and they've been actually banned from bidding on anything for 5 years with the township.
Okay.
But it's all on the public YouTube. Yes.
Perfect, thank you, I didn't watch that.
Yeah.
Further questions?
You're a high-speed rail. How many people were for and how many against?
It,
What do you mean?
You said you had a petition that was signed?
no, that's Scott Reed had
Scott
the
Reed,
petition.
Scott Reed is-
Oh, okay, well, I'm curious.
It's online. You can
How
actually
many
go to
were
it.
for and how
It's-
many against?
It doesn't say against. If you go online, it's petition and it says how many signatures it's on it. It's a government petition. So if you go to the government, I'm not sure what it is, but it's a government.ca. It's a petition and it says how many signatures it has. There's no for or against. It's just it's just a petition.
The petition,
All right,
sign,
yeah.
yeah. Scott Reed has it again. Sorry.
Should my people bring it back? You go bottom.
11,828 signatures so far.
So if 11,000 against it.
Yeah, but we don't know how many for it. What,
Petitions are usually the opposite way. They don't work. They don't work for or against.
I got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a few comments on Wilson Road. I don't know if there's just questions I should ask the staff or maybe probably already looked at, knowing Ally, she's probably followed the law already. Like. Because my property is across the road from it. Part of my property is classified as organic soil. Is that property on that side of the road organic soil classified now? Also, where the road, the culvert crosses with Wilson Road in the spring, not right now because I looked. There's fish there every spring, come up every spring. They come up out of the creek further back in, and when the water's high enough, they come up out from there, small fish. And another thing is Wilson Road
is it owned by the township to begin with? Because it's a forced road, I believe. And because the piece of the road that he wants closed is the actual, when they did the survey of the township where the road is, and then it crosses that road and it goes up on the other side under the property next to me. So is Wilson Road actually a forced road? And forced roads, if they're not maintained by the township, like on Pinery Road, you only own what you maintain. So this hasn't been maintained when I've been there for 24 years. So does the township actually own the road?
So Chair, we're gonna bring all that information forward.
No, I'm just saying, you
Send us
probably
an
have,
email, send us an email. with your Information, because we'll make sure in the report that it's answered, Tom.
okay,
Just so that we don't miss anything. We have looked at it like high level quickly, but we're waiting for direction, obviously, from council on whether they want us to put time into this, but it'll all come on the 20th, because we have, or 19th, we haven't dug real deep on this. So send an email if you don't mind with all of your questions, just so we make sure we answer.
and on the roads committee. I was on the roads committee before when they formed it, when the carriage was raised, I believe. I don't think council. Oh, yeah, all right, but I don't think the council, we're councils at that time. But at that time, we were a volunteer committee and we voted to make sure we're not paid, the non-paid volunteer committee. So there was no cost to the township for our time we put in. I think you're similar to your recreation committee. I don't think they're paid any financial gains at all.
Yeah, I see.
So that's a good point.
Okay.
Just so you're aware of it.
Further question? Anyone online?
None online.
So moved by Deputy Reeve Carroll and second by Councillor Johnson, that bylaw 4209-2026, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council at its regular meeting held on April 7th, 2026, be read the first, second, and third time and passed, signed, and sealed this 7th day of April 2026. All in favor? And that's carried. So moved by Councillor Johnson, second by Councillor Bass, that council adjourn the regular meeting of council of April 7th, 2026 at 8:18 p.m. until Tuesday, April 21st, 2026 at 6 p.m. or at the call of the chair. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you.
Okay, go ahead, Trevor.
All set?
Whenever you're ready.
Welcome to the Committee of the Whole in person live stream electronically Tuesday, April 7th, 2026. Opening of the meeting, we'll start with land acknowledgement. The council and staff of the Township of Montague acknowledge the sacred land on which the Township of Montague is now located, and this meeting is being held as the ancestral and unceded territory of the Algonquin and Anishinaabe Nation. All right. Love adoption of the agenda. Moved by Reeve Jennings, seconded by Deputy Reeve Carroll, that the Committee of the Whole agenda for April 17th, 2026 be approved as presented this date. On favor? Oh, sorry.
April 7th.
April 7th.
That's me.
Yeah, exactly. I'll read whatever is in front of me. So,
That's all I expected. It is.
I know, I didn't realize that I was going to get that. All right, all in favor? Carried. All right. Any disclosure of interest can be made now or anytime throughout the meeting? Do we have any delegations or deputations? We have none. Report of municipal municipal officers. We'll start with the first one member, Cote 2025 Annual Integrity Commissioners Report.
So attached to this report is the 2025 Annual Integrity Commissioner Report issued by our Integrity Commissioner Cunningham Swan. And you'll note that there were no requests for advice asked of the Integrity Commissioner. No issues, everyone was well behaved. And within that document is also a bit of an explanation about the dual role of Integrity Commissioner and Municipal Solicitor. So there have been comments received from the Ombudsman's office with respect to an Integrity Commissioner being also the Municipal Solicitor, and you know the perception that that could show. And so there's sort of a bit of an explanation from Cunningham Swan in there in that regard. So just sort of
Comments, questions? Okay, thank you very much. Moved by Deputy Carroll, seconded by Councillor Crabtree, that the council accept the 2025 Annual Integrity Commissioner Report as information, and that council direct staff to post the report on the township website. All in favor? Carried. Next is Municipal Officer Treasurer Deputy Clerk Alison Barakian, fiber optic internet at Township Office 2026 revised. Take it away.
Thank you, Chair. As council may recall, a report was brought in 2023 where we had a discussion about fiber optic and the potential that Val may bring it up to the office. So the county works on our behalf with IT, and they have been in discussions with Bell again. They've indicated that they will not be bringing it down this way. The cost benefit to offset what it would take them is not there. So we had to have placed $17,000 in a placeholder in their modernization funds from the province to complete this project. Council had already previously approved us to move forward if we couldn't get it, but because it's been a couple of years, I wanted to make sure that council was still on board with it. The county did, when they reached out, they got better pricing from Bell. Bell had a changeover in staffing at that level, and the new person seems pretty eager to get this done for us. So Doug at the county has provided in italics the information. So instead of 17,000, they're down to 11,846 for the one-time bill cost to get the fiber optic to the office here and the new complex. And it'll cost us $475 a month compared to the $550 that was originally proposed on a 5-year contract. So there is indicated the advantages of us switching over. We do drop our internet quite often. It's through the Bell or the phone line. Our phone line's not great. It allows us to move to telephone over the internet, which is great. So we don't work from home very often, but if we do, we can get all those messages through email. So there's a number of advantages. We do have the funds that were provided from the province to obviously modernize how we do things. It is our recommendation to move forward with this now and get this implemented with the use of the modernization thing.
Discussion?
I think it's great. Go for it.
Yeah, I guess it's,
So far,
we need to do it. I even did like a quick thing to see what like Starlink would cost, and like Starlink business is worse than this. So like, I mean, it's it's crazy what Starlink business is. So like, this is the best option in my opinion to it all, and it needs to be done. So that we had to wait we waited patiently for Bell hopefully to do it, but at least the cost is a little bit cheaper now for us to do it, but it is something that you can't run a business like this, and especially if you want to use the cloud more and everything else, we need to have this service.
I got one question though.
Sure.
If they're gonna run a line down here. And I'm not sure how each one's run direct from, say, the box down there, or how they run it exactly. But if someone else ties off it in a year's time, do we get a kickback on that, just like they do on gas? Like if they come down the street and every time somebody ties on, then the ones that paid for it first to get it, they get a percentage for it. It was just a thought.
But we might have some residents that might what's that?
Maybe get better.
They might get better service, so it could be an advantage to those residents. So that's a good question. By the way.
Just
I think this is wonderful. I think it sucks that, you know, it's costing so much, but it is a modernization fund, and I think it's great that you guys will be as effective. It'll also help everyone for the community, because you guys will be reachable, and the internet won't go down so much. So I think it's great.
And share through you that I did not put in the report, keeping in mind that we just saw a big reduction in our phone costs because we switched to Bell. So really, you know, we're still seeing a savings, but we're being able to put it towards better internet. That's going to be a better service overall. Because as Debbie stated, the cloud and the backup, they have to do it at certain times when no one's here and potentially nobody pulling on anything. And even at that, it takes hours. So all of that will be increased.
Awesome. Sounds great. Win-win.
Okay. All right, moved by Councillor Crabtree, seconded by Councillor Bath. That council approves staff to continue with option 1 as presented this date for fiber optic internet at the township office. And further, that council approves the use of modernization funds up to a maximum of $17,000 for the project. All in favor? Carried. All right, any reports of committees? No. Petitions? No. Motions and notice of motion? No. Unfinished business and other business? Seeing none. Tom, do you have any questions? No. Are there any questions?
There are no questions
There are no
on mine.
questions. Okay. Thanks, Tom. Okay. Moved by Councillor Bass, seconded by Councillor Johnson, that the committee of the whole meeting April 7th. All right. Moved by Councillor Bass, seconded by Councillor Crabtree, that the committee of the whole meeting for April 7th, 2026 now be adjourned at 8:34 PM. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you all very much.